in place. Pumps, but it could be midweek before the traffic flows here. E-News, East Cork.
Well, let's stay with that because we're joined from Maynooth, from NUI Maynooth, by Dr. Conor Murphy, who's a researcher in Irish climate change at the university. Conor, thanks very much indeed for talking to us on the programme. I mean, we've been hearing many cases like the family there in Middleton in this recent flooding. Period of flooding, of people who've never been affected by this before. They've never experienced their homes being flooded before, and yet they're facing this devastation now. Is that just a measure of the kind of climate change that's occurring and just how severe a weather event this has been?
Good evening, Brian. It is very difficult to attribute an individual extreme event to climate change, but the evidence is saying to us that this extreme event, particularly Storm Desmond, the risk of it occurring has increased as a result of human increases in greenhouse gases. And we have to place the context of these flood events in the wider global context. This year is the warmest on record globally. And we also have modes of natural climate variability. We have an unprecedented El Nino event. And it's known that these kind of conditions give rise to extremes in Ireland. And, of course, when we look at the Irish context, we've seen a doubling of the likelihood of very extremely wet winters over the last 100 years or so. And we're likely to see flood events of this magnitude increase in frequency as we move into the future as a result of enhanced greenhouse effect and human-driven climate change. And it's not just in terms of wetter conditions. Work that we've done here at Maynooth, looking back at storms over the last 140 years or so, that we have seen an increase in the intensity of storm events in more recent years. So really, while we can say with certainty that this event is due to climate change, we can say that the risk of flood events like this have increased, and we're likely to see them occurring more frequently in the future. Up to 8 times more frequently, as I said.
And when you say...
Up to 8 times more frequently, as I said.
8 times, a liar.
Up to 8 times more frequently, as I said.
Norman boss.
When you say certainty that this event is due to climate change, we can say that the risk of flood events like this have increased, and we're likely to see them occurring more frequently in the future. Up to 8 times more frequently, as I said.
Well, keep on saying
when you say
the next time we might face this winter is not possible, but when we have a look at future climate change projections and we
research
have run
on
them
Irish
through
climate
our
change,
understanding of catchment hydrology, what we tend to find is that floods that might at the present time be associated with a 100-year return period, so we might on average expect them to occur once every 100 years under our climate change projections. But there are uncertainties there, but the
climate has been changed.
The robust results that we have suggest that
become successful flood defence programmes put in place in towns like Fermoy, for example, in Clonmel, which we used to hear about very frequently being affected by flooding. So is that the answer to this? Is it possible for the most part to defend towns and homes?
Another one bought.
There are a number of tools, if you like, for reducing flood risk, and I think the most important toolkit that we have at the moment is the CFRAM study, Catchment Flood Risk Assessment Studies, and that's undertaken or led by the Office of Public Works, and they've identified 300 communities nationally who are at flood risk, and those plans are putting in place remedial measures for addressing flood risk over the medium and long term. And they can include building flood defences, like we've seen in Clonmel and Fermoy. But they can also include dredging small sections of river courses or ensuring that the local context is addressed in understanding flood events. But again, in the context of climate change, and we have to put flooding in the context of
climate has been changed by lunatics through geoengineering.
In place to reduce flooding are stress tested, if you like, for future climate to ensure that they're robust. For example, flood defences are put in place to reduce the risk of extreme flooding, but their effectiveness decreases over time as the climate changes. So we have to ensure that they are built with
climate isn't changing, the climate is being
foundations
changed.
So that it can be upgraded over time or can be improved standard of protection over time as climate change unfolds.
All right, okay, well, there we leave it. Conor Murphy at NUI Maynooth, thank you very much for talking to us.
Cheek them.